Well, I don't care. Just try. You may not hit it super solid, but see if you confirm whether or not you have that new finish. Good leg. I like the leg. I don't care about the ball right now. I'm going to care about the ball, obviously, real soon. But I need a few swings where I don't care about the ball. What'd that ball do?
I think I hit it off the toe and went right.
Okay. Well, let's just try to repeat a good extended left side. Post up on the hip. Keep feeling that new hip. First, PJ, I want these comparisons that I'm doing, I'm basically documenting differences. I'm not necessarily saying that these differences are flaws, but they are worth noting. Here you are in the finish. This was the first swing I videotaped before we started talking about tweaking your swing in any way. And this is the one that you were the most comfortable with. It was the first swing that I videotaped. And certainly when I compare you to Grant in this final finish, you can see how Grant's right knee is all the way up to the red line. I formed a box with the red line outlining the front of the ankle and the back of the ankle, and straight up 90 degrees from there. Grant's right knee goes all the way up to even with the front of his ankle. And you can see where your right knee has a gap, and it's not even up to the back of the ankle. It's hanging back. There is a good portion of Grant's belly in front of his hips that are in front of his left ankle, and you're basically got even with it but not past it. Here's Hunter Mahan, who's one of the better drivers on tour as far as accuracy. You can see that he's strongly on his left side. In fact, his body's right on top of that left ankle. Even little subtle things like the angle of this back foot is going more forward. So he's really getting now over to his left side. Here's Tiger, again strongly on the left side. Here's Tiger with a 4-iron. This was at I took this video myself at the US Open last June. Very tall finish, getting his hips much more forward. Your hips are kind of right underneath your head. He's getting his hips past his head, so he has a little bit more arch there. Here's Rory McIlroy, who has an awful lot of rotation in his finish. You can see his left back pocket really well here. He really gets his shoulders and everything turned around quite a bit. And then here's the before and after working with, and this was early in our session, and you can see a big difference in how you finished. You're much more on top of your left foot, not falling back and hanging back. Your knee is much closer to the leg. You even have more rotation in your shoulders. When you can post up, you can then rotate around that post. When you're falling back, it's going to minimize your completeness of a rotation on the upper body. You have a lot more shoulder turn on the right. So we're pressing the ground.
I'm still back there.
Oh, your right knee is so much closer to your left knee than it's ever been. Oh yeah. Well, I like the way that looked. Okay, well, that's not fun.
Because that has to be, that felt pretty solid?
Yeah, very solid.
Let's see where that plane is. Let's take back a stop.
To what?
Like go to like three or four, you know, three and a half. So that's too steep. Yeah.
But isn't it better to be here than that way? On the backswing?
I'd rather you be here,
Flatter?
flatter. I think you're too steep, which is going to promote a leftward path.
Okay.
Stay behind it. Now you're going to feel comfortable going to the ball, but you're going to take it deeper and flatter inside just for a few swings. May take a few swings to find the right spot.
Everything felt like I could do that all day. Like I didn't have to consciously think of getting it
So
upright.
that's more familiar. That's a familiar thing to you.
That's more repeatable for me.
That
And
was
let me just say the butt part.
okay. Yeah. Right. Sorry, I should.
But after a while,
Oh, okay.
when things start to go awry, I can't help but going back to the fact that if I can get this better, maybe I can lock it up and then find the actual piece that's wrong.
Well, let's examine that.
Unless I'm leaving a hole in the butt.
If you do this flatness every time, and you hit it great, oh, bad shot. Oh, more bad shots. The question is this bad shot coming even though this is still the same flatness, or did this change? Or did something new get introduced with this flatness? And we need to be finding out this piece that was added and take it out, but leave that alone.
Okay.
But you definitely don't feel like you're going steep like you were a while ago.
No.
Okay, good.
This feels fine.
I would not call that flat. I would call your other one too steep. Beautiful. Which is fine as long as the extra doesn't create chaos. That was a good hit. Big toe?
Yep.
Good. I didn't see the ball, but you had a nice extension in your left leg.
Okay.
Is it feeling okay to do it that way?
Yeah.
I like it. Just want to comment on just one small observation. Not even sure how valid this observation is, because I'm not 100% sure my camera angle is in a position to say that it represents the same camera angle that Grant is in. But I drew a blue line along the shoulder line, trying to go from the center of the shoulder through the center of the elbow to the center of the wrist, and I tried to do the same thing with you. And I mentioned in an earlier comment that both of you had your left arm basically on the shoulder line, the same plane as the shoulder line, which is optimal. A more closely, I'm observing now that's possible that it looks like Grant's left arm is slightly higher. In fact, the blue line on him is 40, it says 43 degrees, and the blue line on you says 39 degrees. If I place the base of your blue line and draw a 43 degree angle, then you can see where if everything else in this camera angle was duplicated with Grant, then one could correctly say that your left arm is set flatter than Grant's. Grant's at 43 degrees and you were at 39 degrees. And that if you moved your left arm up a few degrees and get on that red line, then you would be in the same plane. So it's my thought is, and I don't know how you would work on this, is you were trying to not be flat with the shaft. I think you were manipulating the shaft upward to create a shaft that was more upright, when maybe the approach is to try to get the left arm upright and not try to create the swing plane by manipulating the shaft through the hands and wrist, but simply try to have your hands and wrists feel the same and familiar, but you retrain this left arm to come up just a few degrees. It's an observation, and it's almost I'm almost nervous to even talk about it, but I'm curious about your feedback on those comments that I'm making. Is it possible that what you feel is flat, and what you try to do to correct it, and that if something is flat, you can have a left arm that is correct or below correct, which would be called flat, or above correct, which would be upright. And you can also be laid off, and laid off is different than flat. Laid off is what you do kind of in your hands and wrist, which can create a look of flatness, but in reality it's a completely different issue. So I want to get your left arm on plane, and I think it's really in an acceptable limit where it is now. But if one were to be nitpicky about the left arm, one might say, and if we were going to use Grant as some sort of a target to reach, and I'm not saying that we should, because I mean you're a lot taller and a lot of other things, but it is something that I'm observing. And the other things I like in comparison, the position of your right elbow is about the same as Grant. The position of this face right there is about the same as Grant. Basically on plane with your arm. You do have a little more cup in the back of your wrist here. Grant has a little bit. He's not super flat. You have a little bit more. But that's just an observation right now. It may be more of an idiosyncrasy. I'm not convinced that it contributes to chaos in your ball flight. Okay, PJ, we're going to look at your swing. I wish I'd done this before I started adjusting, or we started playing around with different movements and adjustments. This is the down the line picture of your swing, but we had already made some changes. And one of the changes is this was after we had started. I had suggested that I wanted you to take it a little bit deeper and swing a little bit flatter than what you were doing, because my eye was seeing something that was too steep. Unfortunately, I didn't videotape the swing that I thought was too steep, so I don't have it to compare to. But let's look at the down the line swing after you started repeating what you called your familiar, I don't have to think about it, and you can get very repetitive for a while, but then you lose it. I'm going to compare your swing playing to 2 or 3 different pros and see if any pattern or any observations are worth noting. I've drawn a red line on the shaft. I am going to mark you can see the degrees that angle is at. It's 44 degrees on your shaft and 41 on Rory. Going to take it back. One of the reasons I like video is that I'm going to take you back to about the 3 position. One more right there. And let me take him back where the left arm is parallel. Now it looks like the camera angle on Rory is sitting up a little higher. It's not at ground level like we are, so I can't deny the fact that I would have to define that shaft plane as flat and probably define it possibly as too flat. But you do immediately, in just a few frames, at that position it's flat, but boom. In that position, it's pretty much on plane. So it's much better. In fact, I'm going to do that in blue. So it's not as if you don't get into a position to fire at the ball from that would be acceptable. It's just that you arrive at this better place a little differently than maybe someone else arrives at the better place. We'll take the other thing that I started paying attention to is the shoulder line, and the arm line. So there's Rory at the top, and there's your at the top. So Rory's left arm is at 40 degrees, your left arm is at 38 degrees. His left arm is sitting higher, and your left arm is sitting flatter. If indeed your shaft was too flat, one has to consider the fact that maybe we don't try to get the shaft less flat through the hands and wrist, but maybe the reason it's too flat is because the left arm is too flat, and the left arm should sit slightly higher. His left arm is slightly higher than yours is. Yours is sitting just a little bit lower on your chest line than his is. Direct our attention to the lower body. As you come out of the top of the backswing, what is your transition like, and how might it influence the geometry that occurs at the moment of impact? The backswing elements may not have as much influence on that as the downswing elements. So I think it's important that we look at some of these downswing elements too, because they can have a more direct influence on the geometry because it occurs right before impact as opposed to early in the backswing. If we look at the lower body of Grant in the transition and in the downswing, pay particularly close attention to his back foot. As he drives through, his right foot is still somewhat flat. He is turning. There is some rotation in his hips. You can kind of see a little bit of rotation in his hips. You can see that left knee pulling just a little bit. But he's also sliding. He's also moving to the left. So it's not purely a slide. It's not purely a rotation. It's a blended move. It's kind of what I call a hip turn. It's a slide rotation. If the rotation is dominating, you'll see this back foot spin. And what typically we like to see in the back foot is what we call banking. It's leaning, it's shifting. At impact, boom, I can see that Grant has turned his hips. I can see his left back pocket. And I can see that his outside of his right foot has come off the ground. It's kind of leaning to the left. But that heel is here and the toe is here. It is not spun. If we look at right there, your first move is a twist. It's a turn. It's not a slide. It's a turn. You can kind of see that. And you can see how quickly that foot's coming off the ground. So in my view, as you try to blend the rotation to the shift to the left, you have a dominating rotation, which I think causes some chaos with path and face. If we try to fix the chaos with the upper body and what your hands and arms and your shaft is doing, and we leave the lower body's movement alone, I'm not sure that you're going to get rid of the chaos. I would much rather have a thrust of the lower body pushing that belt buckle forward, have the banking of this back foot, and get that established. Work on that piece and get that and own that feeling. and get rid of this spin move that you make in your lower body. I think then you can start getting control of path and face and have a much smaller dispersion of your results. PJ, I went back through all your videos, and this was about a year ago. It's January of 2012, and I was trying to find a particular swing in your past that was not so flat, and even when you were working with Joe, it was flat. In fact, it may have been flatter. This one here was not flat, and so I thought we would take a look at it. So you do have your hands a little higher, so you start with the shaft not as flat. Then as you come back, take you to the 3 position. You're in a good position there. Take you in the 3 position over here on this one from your flatter. Top of the swing. And one of the things that I'm seeing here is it's hard to tell with your dark shirt, but your left arm is higher. You may create the flatness with how your left arm sits across your chest, in that instead of trying to figure out how to manipulate the shaft with the hands and the wrist, we try to get our left arm swing, the swing plane of our left arm needs to be correct, as opposed to trying to think about getting the shaft on plane. Let's get that left arm on plane. It does look like this left arm, if I'm going to put it at 43 degrees, so it matches the picture on the right, it would be sitting a little bit higher. So I thought that was an interesting observation. I can't remember how well you were hitting a year ago the drive. I'm sure you do. If that was a period of time that you were pretty consistent and with your drive, then certainly it was the most on-plane swing I have found so far of your past history of swings. Now, the other thing that is certainly observable here, and maybe the reason your left arm is sitting higher, is that it appears, well, you certainly have a more extended back leg. You have taken some of that angle out of your knee. You have a lot more flex in your right knee on the left, and it certainly looks to me as if your right hip is higher than your left hip, and so everything gets tilted a little bit more. Also, as you come out of the transition of backswing to downswing, on the left you have that little turn, and your back heel, your right heel, lifts straight up. It's really not banking and leaning to the target. It's more or less just lifting, and there seems to be a little bit of a delay. I mean, you're starting to move your legs, you're squatting, you're moving to the left, but you're not really letting it translate all the way down to the feet where the foot lifts up in the air. And that you almost start the lift from the get-go. I mean, it's almost as if the club can't move unless that left foot comes up off the ground. As the first click down, each click after that on the left, each click that the club comes down, the heel comes up. They're just tied to each other. And that doesn't appear to be the case as much on the swing on the right. That it's a much quieter foot, and the heel's coming off, but it's leaning more to the left, as if it's rolling to the big toe, and just the little toe is coming. And so there is a different geometry and different movement on the right than on the left. that is not a bad swing model right there. In fact, I think the swing on the right comes closer to Grant Wake than the swing on the left. I would have to agree with you, now that I've seen the video, that I think you are slightly too flat. I'm not sure what's causing the flatness in that, and that's where your feedback will be helpful. If you feel like you're trying to correct the flatness in your backswing with your hands by making sure that the shaft goes more upright and you're controlling the shaft with your hands, I'm suggesting that we try to control the shaft with your left arm and how it swings back. If you go back to your videos and look at January 21st, 2012,